Listen, you can call it a crisis, a movement, or just men giving up, but something's shifting, and nobody's really talking about it. Men are walking away, not out of hate, not out of revenge, but because they're tired, deep, bone-level tired. For years they tried to play the game right. They worked harder, earned more, dressed better, learned communication, built confidence. They gave everything they had, and still, it wasn't enough. Every time they leveled up, the rules changed. Every time they gave, the gratitude vanished, and after a while, something inside them just broke. So now they're not fighting, they're not arguing, they're not begging to be seen, they're simply stepping back, and the world doesn't seem to notice. You can see it if you look closely. He doesn't text first anymore. He doesn't plan the date. He doesn't chase. He's not cold. He's just done. Because after years of being told to try harder, he realized something brutal. Trying harder in the wrong place will destroy you. He used to believe effort meant connection, that love was earned through loyalty, patience, and consistency. But now, effort feels like currency that no longer buys anything. The more he gives, the less it's worth. And that realization doesn't make him angry. It makes him quiet. Now the same man who once dreamed about building a family, who once imagined coming home to love and peace, sits in his small apartment, lights low, eating dinner alone, and feeling something he hasn't felt in years, calm, no chaos, no guilt, no walking on eggshells, just peace. And that peace, it feels better than love ever did, because modern love, at least the way it's sold today, feels more like a debt than a gift. A man can give his time, his loyalty, his entire heart, and still be told he's not enough. Still be compared to someone taller, richer, more exciting. So men stopped playing the game. They stopped auditioning for roles they never signed up for. They stopped chasing people who only saw them as replaceable. And when they stopped, something unexpected happened. They found clarity. They found power. They found peace. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. Men didn't just give up on dating. They gave up on trying to be chosen. Because every conversation started to feel like a test. Every date, like a transaction. Every act of love, like a performance. And after a while, the heart just stopped showing up. This isn't anger, it's realization. A generation of men looked at the modern dating market and said, no thanks, they'd rather be alone than drained. And for the first time in decades, being alone doesn't feel like losing, it feels like winning. Because now, solitude means freedom. Silence means safety. A man who once begged for connection now craves peace, and that scares people. Because you can't control a man who's made peace with being alone. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't need validation. The truth is, men didn't walk away because they hate women. They walked away because they finally learned to love themselves enough to stop bleeding for people who only ever asked for more. He used to wake up hoping for love, now he wakes up building purpose. He used to chase attention, now he chases peace. And it's funny, when he stopped trying to impress anyone, he finally became someone he respected. That's the real revolution happening right now. Not loud, not angry, not dramatic, just quiet. A silent rebellion against exhaustion, against performance, against pretending. Men aren't disappearing from love, they're disappearing from situations that made them forget who they were. And when the world asks where did all the good men go, the answer is simple, they didn't go anywhere. They just stopped showing up for people who never saw them in the first place. Because the truth is, peace isn't found in being loved, it's found in being free from needing to be. It didn't happen all at once. There wasn't some big announcement, no grand speech, no trending hashtag. It happened in silence, one disappointment at a time. One unanswered text, one ghosted conversation, one moment where he realized that his effort didn't mean anything anymore. That's how the shift began. Quietly, slowly, like a light dimming until the room felt cold. Men didn't wake up one day and decide to stop trying. It was death by 1,000 small realizations. He used to think consistency was attractive. He used to believe that showing up was what made you stand out. But somewhere along the line, sincerity stopped being seen. Effort stopped being appreciated. The more genuine he was, the faster he was dismissed. The more real he became, the less interesting he seemed. And so, little by little, men stopped. They stopped texting first, not because they wanted to play games, but because every message felt like shouting into a void. They stopped planning dates, not because they were lazy, but because every plan got cancelled, or worse, judged. They stopped chasing, not because they lost interest, but because chasing always ended with rejection disguised as indifference. There was a time when dating was simple. You met someone, you talked, you laughed, you built something. Now it's interviews and checklists. What do you do? What's your goal? How tall are you? Every question feels like a background check. Every moment feels like an evaluation. He's not being met as a person anymore. He's being assessed like a product. Once upon a time, he'd show up to a date hoping to meet someone kind. Now he walks in wondering which version of himself he has to be to pass the test. Should he be funny, mysterious, stoic, vulnerable? None of it matters, because at the end of the day, he's just another option in a marketplace built on attention. The shift didn't happen in anger. It happened in clarity. When a man finally realizes that effort no longer guarantees connection, something inside him changes. He stops trying to prove his worth to people who can't see it. He stops apologizing for being real. He starts saving his energy for things that feed his soul instead of drain it. You'll notice it in the small things. The phone that used to be in his hand all day now sits face down while he lifts weights, cooks dinner, or reads. The man who used to stay up late waiting for replies now sleeps early and wakes up ready to build something for himself. The one who once overthought every word now enjoys the silence that used to scare him. This isn't bitterness, it's evolution. Because when a man finally accepts that peace is worth more than attention, he becomes unstoppable. He's no longer fueled by validation, he's fueled by purpose. No longer desperate to be liked, just determined to be himself. And that's the part people don't understand. When men stop trying, it's not a tantrum, it's not revenge, it's recovery. They've adapted to rejection fatigue, that invisible exhaustion that comes from always being the one who initiates, gives and waits. They've replaced dating apps with discipline, the gym instead of endless conversations that go nowhere, podcasts instead of mixed signals, long drives instead of mind games, because the truth is, peace is addictive. Once a man tastes it, chaos feels unbearable. You can't guilt him into coming back to something that costs him his sanity. You can't shame him for protecting his energy. You can't convince him that being single is worse than being invisible. Ask men in their 30s today, they'll tell you, they're not afraid of being alone, they're afraid of losing themselves trying not to be. That's the shift, the quiet rebellion, the silent evolution. Men didn't stop dating because they stopped believing in love. They stopped because love started to feel like labor, because affection turned into obligation, because connection turned into competition. He used to show up because he wanted to be chosen. Now he walks away because he finally chose himself. And the irony, that decision, the one people call giving up, is the most powerful act of self-respect he's ever made. Modern society will call it avoidance, but it's not. It's awareness. The awareness that peace doesn't come from being needed. It comes from not needing anyone to confirm your worth. And that's why you'll find these men building in silence. He's not scrolling, he's studying. He's not begging, he's building. He's not chasing, he's changing. And he's happier for it, because he's realized that love shouldn't feel like a test you're destined to fail. It shouldn't drain your spirit or make you question your worth. It should add peace to your life, not take it away, and if it doesn't, he'd rather walk alone than crawl for affection. The shift isn't about rejecting love, it's about redefining it. It's about a generation of men realizing that peace is the new passion, that solitude is not punishment, that stillness doesn't mean stagnation. He's not afraid of being single anymore, he's afraid of being misunderstood, undervalued, unseen. He's afraid of giving everything to someone who only sees half of him, so he stopped, not out of defeat, but out of dignity. And now when you see him quiet, calm, focused, that's not loneliness, that's power. The kind of power that comes when a man finally stops begging for peace and starts living in it. He doesn't need to prove he's a good man anymore, he just needs to be one for himself. That's the shift. That's the new era. And no matter how much the world laughs, mocks, or misunderstands it, men aren't going back. Because once you learn how peaceful life can be without constant emotional chaos, you never trade that serenity again. He's not hiding, he's healing. He's not avoiding love, he's waiting for peace. There was a time when effort meant something, when showing up mattered, when being kind, loyal, and consistent made you stand out. But somewhere between curated selfies and endless highlight reels, effort lost its value. Men didn't notice it right away. They kept trying, they kept giving. They believed that maybe if they worked harder, loved deeper, stayed patient longer, they'd finally be seen. But the more they gave, the more invisible they became. Because in today's world, effort isn't appreciated, it's expected. The man who goes out of his way to plan a date isn't romantic, he's doing the bare minimum. The man who compliments her is cringe. The one who opens the door gets an eye roll. The man who offers stability is boring. It's not that appreciation disappeared, it just stopped going both ways. So men started learning in silence. They learned that their kindness would be mistaken for weakness. Their loyalty would be taken for granted. Their generosity would be met with entitlement. And slowly they began to withdraw, not out of resentment, but out of protection. You can see it in the small things. The man who used to bring flowers now brings peace and distance. The one who used to write long messages now replies with short sentences. The one who used to surprise her with plans now just asks what she wants to do, and if she doesn't care, neither does he. Because no matter what he chooses, it'll probably be wrong anyway. Modern relationships turned into performance reviews. Every word, every action, every emotion gets scored, and no matter how hard he tries, it's never enough. Too emotional, weak, too stoic, cold, too confident, arrogant, too quiet, detached. He's stuck in a loop where being himself is always the wrong answer. Once men were valued for effort, now they're measured by aesthetics, looks, income, status, everything but soul, and that kills something inside a man. Not his pride, not his ego, but his spirit. The quiet part that used to believe in love. The part that once believed that doing your best meant something, because today, love feels like a subscription, pay monthly, get minimal returns, cancel anytime, there's no loyalty, no depth, just endless swiping and comparing. When affection becomes a transaction, sincerity becomes obsolete. So men adapted, they stopped investing where there's no return. They stopped auditioning for attention that vanishes overnight. They stopped pouring their hearts into people who only measured them by potential, not presence. It's not that they stopped caring, it's that caring stopped being safe. Because how long can someone keep giving when every effort gets twisted into obligation, when his love becomes routine, when his silence becomes guilt? He realized something: when effort no longer holds value, it's better to stop offering it than to keep giving it to the void. That's why you'll find these men elsewhere now, in the gym, because iron doesn't lie, at work because success still responds to consistency, in their craft because creation still rewards discipline, in solitude because peace still gives back what chaos takes away. They've learned that peace is the only thing that won't betray them. It doesn't leave, it doesn't lie, it doesn't demand more. And here's the part that people never understand. When a man withdraws, he's not giving up, he's rebalancing. He's finally giving to himself what he spent years giving to others. The world calls him distant. In reality, he's just done being drained. He doesn't argue anymore. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't try to fix what keeps breaking. Instead, he builds quietly. He works out. He learns. He earns. He grows. And slowly, the parts of him that were broken by rejection begin to heal through purpose. Because once a man learns that peace is the real prize, love stops being the finish line. Peace is steady, love is fragile, peace is earned, love is conditional. Peace doesn't ask him to prove anything. And for the first time in his life, he's not chasing something he can lose, he's protecting something he found. He doesn't crave validation anymore, he craves consistency. He doesn't want to be adored, he wants to be understood. He doesn't need a cheerleader, he needs calm. But that kind of peace, you can't buy it. You have to earn it by walking away from everything that made you question your worth. Because the truth is, you can't break a man by rejecting him. You break him by making his effort meaningless. And that's what happened. Now, he doesn't argue when someone calls him cold. He doesn't explain himself when people say he's changed. Because they're right, he has. He's not who he used to be. He's no longer the man who confuses tolerance for love. The man who once begged for a chance now builds his own. The man who once chased attention now values silence. The man who once feared being alone now protects it like treasure. Because he's learned something that most people never will. That peace is worth more than being chosen. And when you finally give a man peace, he'll move mountains for you. But take that peace away, and you'll never see him again, because once he learns how it feels to live without emotional chaos, he'll never return to the noise. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, that's not bitterness, that's survival. Men didn't disappear, they just stopped giving where effort goes to die. And if you listen carefully, in the silence they left behind, you'll hear it. Not anger, not sadness, just peace. The sound of men who finally stopped asking to be valued, and started valuing themselves. Love used to be human. It used to happen by accident. A glance across a room, a laugh at the wrong joke. Two people meeting at the wrong time but making it right anyway. There was mystery in it. Risk, excitement, connection. Now it feels like marketing, like an audition, like trying to sell yourself to someone scrolling through hundreds of faces. Modern dating isn't about connection anymore, it's about competition. Once upon a time, people met through friends, in real places, at real moments. Now it's pixels, swipes, filters and bios crafted like resumes. You're not talking to a person anymore, you're talking to a profile. A highlight reel of someone's best angles and safest opinions. And in that endless scroll, something essential got lost: honesty. Men noticed it first, that eerie emptiness behind all the attention. That strange feeling that they're not connecting, they're auditioning. Every photo, every joke, every message feels like it's being graded. You can almost hear the silent thought on the other end: could I do better? The truth is brutal. Everyone's replaceable now. And when everyone's replaceable, no one feels real. Dating became a marketplace. Love became a brand, affection became a transaction, every man became a product, every woman a consumer, everyone competing for attention that doesn't last longer than a notification. You can match with hundreds of people, but if every connection is surface level, you're not dating, you're collecting validation. And the irony? The more options people have, the less satisfied they become. Because endless choice doesn't create happiness, it creates emptiness. Men saw it happening in slow motion. They saw their friends losing themselves chasing approval from strangers who didn't care. They saw women drowning in attention but starving for connection. They saw authenticity replaced by algorithms and chemistry replaced by convenience. He used to believe dating was about finding someone who fits. Now it feels like fighting to prove you deserve to exist. And eventually, he just stopped fighting. Because what's the point? What's the point of trying to connect in a system built to keep you distracted? What's the point of being sincere in a world that rewards performance? So men walked away, not out of fear, not out of resentment, but out of clarity. They realized love today often feels like trying to fill a void that technology keeps widening. He stopped checking who liked his photos. He stopped rewriting messages to sound perfect. He stopped chasing people who treated attention like a currency to spend on whoever entertained them the most that day. Because attention isn't affection, validation isn't love, and chemistry built on convenience doesn't last. He realized that in this new economy of affection, women's attention multiplies but men's effort diminishes. A woman can post a selfie and get flooded with messages, comments and validation from across the world. A man might go weeks without a single genuine "hey." That's not bitterness, that's imbalance. And when attention becomes the currency of connection, the ones who get less stop spending it. Men stopped playing the game because they saw it for what it was, a loop of shallow exchanges that lead nowhere. They deleted the apps, stopped competing for people who saw them as placeholders, not partners. Because after a while, being ignored hurts less than being half noticed. And when everything becomes about options, commitment starts to feel like a trap. Why choose one person when a better one might appear tomorrow? Why invest in someone when replacements are one swipe away? But here's the paradox. The more options we have, the less we value any of them. Because when you can have anyone, you start treating everyone like no one. That's the illusion. More choice doesn't mean more love. It just means more noise. Men saw that. They saw it destroy sincerity. They saw it turn relationships into negotiations. What do you bring to the table? What do you offer? As if love were a business contract and affection were an exchange rate. And something inside them broke. Because love was never supposed to be a competition. It was supposed to be a connection. It wasn't meant to be a marketplace, a scoreboard, or a marketing campaign. It was meant to be two people saying "I see you" and meaning it. But somewhere along the line, seeing became scrolling, hearing became typing, loving became liking. So men quit. Not because they stopped believing in love, but because they stopped believing in this version of it. They stopped chasing people who measured their worth in followers. They stopped fighting for people who flirted for entertainment. They stopped trying to prove that being genuine still mattered, because it does, just not here. And when they walked away, they found something they hadn't felt in years: peace. Peace in not checking who's online. Peace in not performing for attention. Peace in no longer competing with fantasy. Because that's what modern dating has become, a competition with illusion, competing against versions of perfection that don't even exist in real life. And how do you win against that? You don't. You leave. You stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself. You stop chasing love that feels like work and start protecting peace that feels like home. And that's the irony. When men stopped chasing others, they finally started finding themselves. Because maybe the modern love story isn't about two people finding each other anymore. Maybe it's about one person finally finding peace. He's not avoiding connection. He's avoiding confusion. He's not afraid of commitment. He's afraid of competition disguised as love. He's not giving up. He's growing up. Because when every interaction feels like a performance, authenticity becomes rebellion. And men, the ones who walked away, became rebels in silence. No grand speeches, no anger. Just clarity. The kind that says, I'd rather be alone in truth than connected in illusion. And that's what nobody wants to admit. Men didn't leave love behind. They left behind the performance, the pretending, the game. Because peace, real, deep, undisturbed peace, is the only thing that still feels real in a world full of filters. And for the first time in decades, being alone doesn't feel like failure. It feels like freedom. At first, the silence felt strange. The empty apartment, the quiet evenings, the absence of constant notifications, it all felt unfamiliar. For years, his world was noise, texts, calls, arguments, expectations. He was used to running on emotional adrenaline, chasing validation, explaining himself, fixing misunderstandings that never should have existed in the first place. And now, suddenly, there was nothing, just stillness. But slowly that stillness began to feel good. The noise stopped. The confusion faded, the tension dissolved. For the first time in years, he could actually hear his own thoughts. No more wondering what she meant by that text. No more decoding passive-aggressive silence. No more trying to say the right thing, wear the right thing, be the right thing. Just peace. And peace, real peace, feels better than love ever did. He wakes up when he wants. He eats what he wants. He trains harder, works deeper, sleeps better. There's no drama waiting on his phone, no guilt, no games, no emotional roller coaster, just focus. He's not lonely, he's centered, he's not isolated, he's in control. Because peace isn't the absence of people, it's the presence of balance. And once a man tastes that, he doesn't forget it. He realizes something powerful. Silence can love you back. Not with words, not with affection, but with stability. He starts finding joy in the smallest things, cooking his own meals, cleaning his space, driving with the windows down, lifting weights until the noise in his head goes quiet, watching sunsets without checking his phone, building small habits that lead to big peace. He no longer looks for someone to make him happy. He becomes the reason he wakes up proud. He realizes he never needed a relationship to feel complete. He needed direction. He needed purpose. He needed himself. Because love without purpose feels like chaos. And purpose without love, that's still peace. He used to think he needed a partner to feel alive. Now he knows he just needed alignment. This isn't about rejecting companionship. It's about refusing to trade peace for it. He's not against love. He just won't sacrifice his stability for it again. He won't lose himself trying to keep someone else comfortable. He won't beg for appreciation from people who can't even recognize effort when they see it. He doesn't need grand gestures anymore. He doesn't crave attention. He doesn't seek validation. He seeks quiet, consistency, simplicity, because peace is addictive. It's freedom disguised as solitude. It's the feeling of walking through life with no performance left in you. The man who once chased chaos now guards his calm like sacred ground. You can see it on his face, that slow confidence, that quiet power. He's not cold, he's grounded. He's not detached, he's deliberate. He's not arrogant, he's healed. And that kind of energy, it's magnetic, because a man at peace doesn't chase, he doesn't beg, he doesn't prove, he simply is, whole, untouchable, unbothered, and ironically, that's when he becomes more attractive than ever, not because he's playing games, but because he's stopped playing entirely. Women notice it too, the real ones, the ones who've also been through the chaos, who've also been burned by noise, confusion, and constant performance. They recognize that calm in him because they fought to earn it too. When that kind of woman meets that kind of man, the world stops spinning for a moment. No tests, no roles, no ego, just understanding. Because both have lived through noise, both have walked through emotional fire, and both are tired. That's what real love looks like now. Not fireworks, but steady warmth. Not chaos disguised as passion, but quiet connection built on respect. Because when two people meet who've both found peace on their own, they don't complete each other, they protect each other. That's the new love story. Not about finding your missing half, but about meeting someone who makes you glad you're already whole. Until then, men are fine alone. Not angry, not bitter. Just done trying to be everything for people who treated them like nothing. Because solitude isn't loneliness anymore. It's freedom. He's not lonely eating dinner alone. He's enjoying peace without tension. He's not lonely sleeping alone. He's resting without walking on eggshells. He's not lonely waking up alone. He's building a life that's fully his. And that's the irony the world can't handle. That men are not escaping love. They're escaping chaos. They're not hiding from connection. They're healing from conditionality. They're not rejecting women. They're rejecting exhaustion. They're not afraid to love. They're just unconfusing love with pain. Because the truth is, peace gives a man something love never consistently could. Control over his mind, his emotions, his life. He doesn't have to check his phone every 5 minutes. He doesn't have to overthink every sentence. He doesn't have to explain why silence feels good. He just exists, fully. He's not running away from love. He's waiting for one that doesn't disturb his calm. Because once a man understands that peace is the ultimate currency, everything else loses value. Validation, temporary. Attention, fleeting. Peace, eternal. Men used to chase love like it was oxygen. Now they chase peace like it's air. Because peace is love that doesn't take, it gives. Peace is intimacy without fear. Peace is love without anxiety. And when he finds that, even if it's just within himself, he finally understands what freedom feels like. He's not avoiding people. He's avoiding noise. He's not escaping connection. He's escaping confusion. He's not rejecting love. He's redefining it. Because solitude isn't the absence of love. It's the space where real love finally has room to grow. That's the peace he found. Not a reward, not revenge, just balance. The kind that makes you wake up and think, maybe this is what happiness was supposed to feel like all along. Men didn't walk away out of hate. They walked away out of clarity. The world called them cold, but they were finally calm. Society mocked their peace, but they had already found purpose. They realized they don't owe anyone their exhaustion, their energy, or their silence. They owe themselves peace. And that's the ending nobody expected. Men didn't stop loving, they just stopped begging to be understood. Because once a man learns that solitude isn't loneliness but freedom, nothing scares him anymore. Not rejection, not judgment, not being alone. Because now, he finally belongs to himself.